Vandals.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubbs at the Club, your University of Idaho affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined today by fellow co-host Trevin Pixley down in Lewiston-ish, Martin Heemstra holding it down in Moscow. Guys, kick-ass game, but we'll get to the game. But how are we doing here, Trevin?
I like to say that was a great defensive performance, but overall I was not completely blown away. But Treeb always the pessimist in the group, I would say.
Idaho gets on the right track with a huge FBS win over Wyoming, 17-13, and Trevin's takeaway is like, I don't know, man, like they didn't win by 100. What? Fuck that. Yeah. Anyway, Martin in Moscow. Brick wall behind you for God knows why. How's it going?
It's going good. I learned a lot about Josh Allen today. I'm really excited about that. I'm excited that we have another FBS win, two FBS wins in back-to-back years.
That's 2 Mountain West wins for the Big Sky this year. That because Montana State already beat New Mexico, Idaho downs Wyoming. This show's brought to us by Snake River Stampede Canadian Whiskey. So, hey, what are we here for, Martin? Instant reaction. Huge Idaho win over Mountain West Wyoming. Team picked to finish middle of the pack in the Mountain West. So this was obviously a defensive battle. If it's going to be 17-13, guys. So game starts out. Idaho initially was in a 3. They're down 3-0 after a Wyoming 48-yard field goal. Idaho's offense, they scored 17 points. We're going to get to that part later. But let's just say Idaho was helped. Their first touchdown off a Wyoming fumble recovered relatively deep in Wyoming territory, which set up an Eli Cummings 3-yard touchdown run, put Idaho up 7-3. Now, Wyoming answers back. This is all in the first quarter. In a 17-13 game, a huge amount of scoring took place in the first quarter. Wyoming quarterback Svoboda, who the announcers continually compared to Josh Allen for reasons I don't understand, puts Wyoming back on top 10-7 after a 20-yard touchdown pass. And hey, that's our first quarter scoring. Second quarter, Idaho strikes back. Jack Wagner caps a 10-play, 75-yard drive with a 2-yard touchdown pass to Jake Cox. Later in the second quarter, Idaho also converts on a 49-yard field goal, puts Idaho up 17-10 at halftime. There's 3 total points scored in the second half. Wyoming kicks a field goal early in the fourth quarter, set up by an Idaho fake punt in the middle of the field that, let's say if Idaho lost this game, we'd be talking about it different. But that's it. Idaho, both teams, they're defensive teams, and that's how the game played out. We'll talk in detail about the Idaho end defensively, but because this part is going to be a little bit quicker, got to talk about the offense first. And hey, big thing we're going to get to, Jack Wagner, backup quarterback, goes down in the fourth quarter and is out for the rest of the game. Nick Josefek took over for Jack Wagner for those last couple minutes. He does not show up in the box score because Josefek did not throw a single pass, but it doesn't matter. Idaho picks up a win over Wyoming, 17-13, which, hey, we know that's huge for playoff implications, guys. But going to start with Martin. We're going to start offensively. What went well for Idaho?
I'm scoreboard watching, like reading off a roster. I'm going to go with running the ball. It's kind of hard to pick, but I'd say running the ball.
Yeah, specifically, Nate Thomas rushed 15 times for 64 yards. Eli Cummings, 16 rushes for 52 yards. Those were the big contributors on the Idaho side of the ball. We needed every yard that we picked up from those two guys. We needed. Eli Cummings also he rushed for a touchdown as well. Trevin, what went well for Idaho offensively?
I like Jordan Dwyer's bounce back week. He had a couple of drops against Oregon this week. He was able to get open. He was Wagner's go-to guy, and he even drew some pass interference calls. And I just want to say, 12 got very frustrated on both of those, and they were the most obvious pass interference calls I had ever seen in my life.
No, hey, 100% with you. Jordan Dwyer was the obvious favorite target of Jack Wagner, 6 catches for 66 yards. And Trevin said plural pass interference penalties because it was multiple pass interference penalties against Jordan Dwyer, one of which robbed Idaho of what could have been a touchdown. Dwyer also meant Wagner just barely, he overthrew Jordan Dwyer on what would have been a huge touchdown pass early. So Dwyer, 6 catches, very, very easily could have been more. What I'm going to say went well offensively for Idaho is, look, the team, we knew offense was going to be simplified with what they ran for Jack Wagner because they not a put down to the dude, but there was no quarterback controversy in Moscow when Jack Lane won the job. And Wagner essentially has a week to prep as the potential starter. So Wagner had enough moments. He goes 12-20 for 101 yards, 1 touchdown, no turnovers for Wagner. Hey, that's a big deal. But you saw he was good enough at hitting his first or second read to keep Wyoming honest in the first half. Certainly, we're going to spend way more time talking on the defense side of the ball, obviously, but Wagner, look, the big deal here is for Idaho, especially the backup quarterback. They needed to get enough, and that's all. Hey, a 1-point win, still a win, guys. Weber State's made the playoffs multiple times with Jay Hill, and they're tough outs with the idea that a 1-point win is a win. So like Nate Mink says in the comment sections, no INTs from Wagner made the difference. Hey, and a touchdown too. So that's to me what went well. So on the offensive side, now what is probably going to be a longer talk, Martin, what went well for Idaho defensively?
It's hard to pick just one thing, but I'd say just everything seemed to just go Idaho's way. Svoboda, but I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. Josh Allen, Great Value Brand, seemed to
Evan Svoboda
play the way we all kind of thought he would. So yeah, I'm going to go with defense. It just seemed like everything went well. For me, at least. Okay,
Trevin, let's dive in a little deeper.
Yeah, no, I think just the major player, the major contributor, right? Keyshawn James Newby. That guy is a stud. Man, insane talent. I'm pushing the Keyshawn James Newby to the NFL agenda as hard as I can, and it seems like, a lot of these announcers and the games are. Jason X seems to believe so, and he is a talented cat, man. And it's from last year to this year, just the progression is insane. That offsides call, if you see my tweets, I don't think he was offsides. I thought that was just a really insane get off, and
which would have given him a 4th sack.
Yeah, exactly. He had 3 sacks today. Incredible talent, dude. He is getting after it for those guys.
Yeah, Keyshawn James Newby, especially in the second half. But like reference, hey, he had three sacks on the game. Had a 5th, which also resulted in a fumble, but it was nullified. He was called as being offsides. So defensively for Idaho it is really tough, I believe, for any defense to bring it all 4 quarters. And that's what Idaho has done in both games. It's pretty normal in these FCS games that the FCS team can hang around and be plucky. But if they don't have a healthy lead heading into the 4th quarter, that's when the talent the depth especially starts to really wear down on the FCS side. Idaho defensively has been just as strong, if not stronger, in the second halves of both these games than they were in the first. And I guess, honestly, look, Idaho's playing with a backup quarterback. I'm using this as a comparison, guys. So we knew, hey, simplified game plan, right? Well, Idaho's backup quarterback, Jack Wagner, outproduced starting quarterback Evan Svoboda for Wyoming. Svoboda, 10-24 for 126 yards. But then Wyoming, they weren't particularly effective on the ground either. 43 rushes for 144 yards on the game. And just bringing those 2 things up to say, hey, what went well for Idaho defensively? A ton. Like the 1 touchdown pass they gave up. I mean, Isaiah King, he made a mistake in coverage, thought the team was in zone when he should have manned up. But that's Wyoming needed plays like that to even get on the board. Idaho had a couple times where, we went for it on 4th down. So Vandals went for it on 4th down. Jason Eck calls that we both love and are terrified of, that did not work out in the second half. But Eck was able to trust his defense to say, hey, even if the Vandal offense is going to give up good field position, that defense is going to bring it. They're going to lock Wyoming down. That's absolutely what happened. So, yeah, hey, Martin, no notice before we shift to what did not go well for Idaho on this game. We got to remind people who is bringing the show to them. I'm going to find out who. Snake River Stampede Canadian Whiskey bringing the show this time, so we know which one that means it'll be next. So, hey, there's 2 whiskey options from Snake River, either their entry-level Snake River Stampede or their small batch 1915 edition. Both whiskeys are great buys. Both have double barrel finishes. Your Stampede is ex-bourbon to Oloroso sherry casks. Your small batch 1915 is aged a couple years longer, plus it's ex-bourbon cask to ex-Canadian rye whiskey casks. Doesn't matter which one you get. Oh, hey, a day like today, I'm grabbing the small batch to celebrate. But no matter which pick with Snake River, you cannot go wrong. Get yourself a bottle today. Martin. And hey, listeners, if you're looking at this hey, we had a kick-ass game. We're only going to talk for 10 minutes about what went well. We'll hit more stuff in the second half of the show. So before we get to that part, we have to hit what did not go well. Martin, let's start offensively for Idaho. What did not go well?
For me, it's the passing game. I know we had backup quarterback playing, but to only have 101 yards in the game is underwhelming to see, and I would have liked to have seen a little more out of them. I know there was a couple deep balls that should have been caught by Jordan Dwyer, but to me that was kind of what could have been improved.
All right, Trevin, you've been waiting for this one. Jump in. What did not go well offensively?
Always waiting for this. 3rd down conversions. I think that's the obvious one. I mean, only converting 1 for the entire game. And then going on to the 4th down aggression, like you said, I mean, we love it. It played out to about a 50-50, result by the end of the game. But, it is what it is. You can kind of call it when you see it, but then the defense kind of rose to the occasion, so it was kind of a wash. But 3rd down for sure is what I'm going to pick on. when you only go 1 for 11, I think it was by the end of it, that's not a good number to go by.
Yeah. Idaho 1 of 13 on third down.
1 of 13. Yeah.
So, hey, let me just say the obvious thing. If Idaho scored no points in the second half, like there's a lot that did not go that well on the offensive side of the ball. Probably the worst thing that went for Idaho is losing backup quarterback Jack Lane to injury. And injury looked not that different from what happened to Jack Lane a week ago.
You mean Jack Wagner, not Jack Lane?
Sorry, we lost Jack. No, we lost Jack Wagner this week.
Both of them, really.
But the injury didn't look that different from what happened to Jack Lane against Oregon. We have no news as we record about what the injury is, but the play-by-play team said, hey, Idaho coaching staff gave Wagner a chance to throw a couple balls on the sideline after he went down in the fourth quarter, see how he looked. They didn't like what they were seeing, so they went with Nick Josevec instead. So what did not go well? Yeah, well, losing your second-string quarterback when you already lost. I know X said that Jack Lane isn't necessarily gone for the whole year. Yeah, I'll buy that when I see it. Dude had surgery for broken collarbone. I will buy that he is ready for Division I college football in 6 weeks when I see that actually happening. So quarterback issue, pretty big deal. Other thing that this is both it went well and did not go well, and it may be moot if Wagner's out extended. Wagner had moments where like you could see he had an arm and he certainly made some plays, but I mean, he showed why he's the backup. Looks like he clearly is not cycling through reads the way that Jack Lane does. Looked pretty much like he was kind of staring down 1 or 2 reads, and that was it, as evidenced by like the pass to me, the catch distribution. The other being, Idaho did have some success running the ball, but the problem is because Wagner was not able to consistently hit targets, Wyoming was able to really key on the run in the second half, and I think that's why Idaho went away. Felt like they went away from the rush a little bit because box was getting loaded up, and what else were you supposed to do? But hey, big picture, Idaho team with some key injuries, and we knew offense was going to be the question anyway. Goes into Wyoming, pulls off a huge FBS win. That's huge for the playoffs. We knew, hey, if Idaho's going to make the playoffs, they got to beat a few good teams. And in terms of FCS understanding, hey, Wyoming win is a win over a good team. So at least one of those games we get to check off. Martin, we're going to go to players of the game in a second. Before we go to that, we got to talk about Hughes River Expedition. So look, Hughes River Expedition has been sponsoring the Tubs for a while. The company is run by Vandals. Colin Hughes, a kick-ass Vandal. And if you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976 and are ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. If you want to go on multi-day trips, like going down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the Main Salmon River, No Return, or the Selway, they have something for you. If you want to go on special trips like the one to see the Perseid meteor shower, they've got those for you. All you have to do is bring her close and let HRE handle the rest. The trips are all inclusive. Just get a hold of Colin. Call him now at 406-540-4450 or check him out at hughesriver.com. Book yourself a trip of a lifetime. So players of the game, starting on the offensive side of the ball, Martin.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to go with Eli Cummings just being able to hit he was in the first half, at least, was a little patient, was able to hit the hole on some plays and got the touchdown on that trick play they ran. So I'll go with Eli.
Okay. Like I said earlier, Eli Cummins on the ground. Cummins 16 rushes for 52 yards and a touchdown. But absolutely had some big moments, especially in the first half. He was out with injury for a little bit, but we did see him return in the second half. Trevin, offensive player of the game.
I'm going back to Jordan Dwyer. Like I said, I liked his ability to rebound this week and make some catches when he needed to. He's really the face of that receiver room. They say it every week. Would really like to see some more receivers emerge in that room, but I'm giving it to JD.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jordan Dwyer was kind of the security blanket that Jack Wagner needed. I do want to shout out Jay Cox, another touchdown catch. He has 2 touchdowns in 2 games this year. So Jay Cox still bringing it. While we need to get more Alex, more involvement so that we can go back to hashtag more Cox when we talk about the tight ends. But hey, with MVP, I'm pretty much with you, Trevin. Although in the running room, hey, Nate Thomas, 15 rushes for 64 yards. He was important too. I mean, and honestly, hey, if a team like Idaho scores 17 points and none in the second half, essentially every yard they got, they needed. So there was no, like, to me, obvious standout offensive MVP. There was guys doing enough, and then the defense really bringing it, which is what, hey, defensive MVPs. And just have to address, the defense kicked ass for 4 quarters. There's a lot of options we have here. Martin, who's your defensive MVP?
KJ, and I'll just keep it simple.
Yeah.
All right, Trevin.
Just for the sake of being different, because I think it's Keyshawn James Newby, right? That's the obvious answer. But just to give some people some different shout outs, Abraham Williams, I think he had a good game today. He had a good game in the return game. I think he's looking better as a defensive back at Idaho than he did at Weber. And I think he's playing well, man. I don't know. I think he's playing well. And I want to say to Jonathan Jacobs, I was not impressed by LJ Harm, so I'm going to continue to be a pessimist, and I would not have said that. So bad take on your part.
Okay. In the comment section, offensively, we got people all over the place because, again, there was no standout exactly. You know, like we have Simon Miller saying Eli Cummings. We've got Jonathan Jacobs saying hot take Jack Wagner had 0 throws that were worse than Jack Lane. And hey, maybe we'll hit on that. Defensive MVP. Look, I want to agree with you, Trevin. I was really impressed by the physicality of Abraham Williams. He had some really good, really important tackles. Keyshawn James Newby, like the way he got the quarterback, especially in the second half, that was a difference maker. So honestly, those are the 2 guys that I would have picked in between. But I do want to bring up Idaho. Idaho didn't get to the quarterback like quite as effectively for a lot of this game as against Oregon. But hey, the defense looked stronger as the game wore on, and Wyoming was not able to exploit Idaho in the secondary at all. And especially early, you saw Tommy McCormick seem like he was there for pretty much every play and big hit. And then, look, Wyoming also couldn't impose their will physically on the ground against Idaho either. I mean, the Vandals pretty much look. Wyoming scored 13 points, 1 touchdown, 2 field goals. You know, if Idaho could hold Big Sky teams to 13 points, they're going to win a lot of football games. If they can do that against Wyoming, that's just a kick-ass effort by the entire unit. So now, look, we can go to takeaways, like broader takeaways. But before we do that, hey, just got to tell you, join the hashtag OnlyTubs Discord, patreon.com/Tubs at the club, especially game days. That thread is going constantly, and especially on road games.
Yeah, we had 30 people, like 30 to 40 people commenting during the game at all the times. It was fun.
Yeah, no, it does. It makes the games fun, especially road games when we're all at home, not actually at the game. Costs as little as a cup of coffee a month, guys. Patreon.com/Tubs at the club. Support the show. All right. Martin, just the post-game shows we usually do different. We can now go to broader takeaways about, hey, what this game means for Idaho, about after seeing this game, what this means for our understanding of Idaho. Martin, I'll give you the first shot.
I'll let you guys kind of do more of the in-depth stuff. I'm just speaking from a fan's perspective, just for myself. Honestly, I think I trust the team to win against UAlbany with whoever the quarterback is, whoever the quarterback is in this future. They've beat an FBS team with a backup quarterback who hasn't played before. They've earned my trust, and my full faith in Eck, Slice, and this team and the defense, and for every game this year.
Okay, Trevin, takeaways.
Starting things off, the offense is shit. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But starting things off, the defense played their asses off for 4 straight quarters. Marceau, you hit on that. And they are going to be the lifeblood of this team. And I think that defense can stop anybody at the FCS level. And they, were able to put on a clinic against the number 3 team in the FBS last week. I mean, that is just showing enough that this team has the potential to be special. With that being said, I think that the offense needs to get better, and it's going to depend on who's going to be playing quarterback, and if it's, Nick, I won't be able to pronounce his last name.
Josephek.
He hasn't played a game, obviously. When Wagner was there, he completed his first 8 passes, and then after that, he only completed 4. So, they did simplify the game plan. Things weren't always there, and, I think the offense needs to get in sync a little bit better.
No, Trevin, that's a great point. Wagner starts off 8 for 8, then finishes 4 of 13. And I think a little bit of what we're going to see, if look, hey, we don't know if Jack Wagner is going to play, but I want to kind of buttress your point, Trevin. What I interpret you to be saying is, hey, whoever the quarterback is, obviously the game plan is going to change. But saw that cat there too. But if Jack Lane is there, if he can be there later in the year, then we're talking about, hey, the full potentiality of what this roster can do. That's what Idaho's offense is going to be.
Yeah.
With Wagner, it was simplified.
Yeah.
And with Josephek, you just have to assume it may even be further simplified.
Yeah,
which is to say,
to the O-line, I've shat on that O-line numerous times. That was a good performance from them.
Yeah.
That was a good performance from them. And if they can play like that and they can protect and do well, that moves it up a step further, that O-line.
Yeah. But if things are, when we say further simplified, like you guys know, at some point simplified is not a compliment.
No.
So we're going to see what that means. It's just, but now look, Idaho doesn't have it. Jack Lane is the old quarterback on the roster. There's not a single non-freshman quarterback other than Jack Lane's the only non-freshman quarterback on the roster. So and he's out. I expect he's out for the year. Again, if he's back in 6 to 7 weeks towards the end of the season, fantastic. I'll believe it when I see it. Until then, it's some version of dudes who haven't played much. So we've got that. But defense, that just means this is the identity of this team is going to be defensively. This is a kick-ass unit. This defense is good enough to win a lot of football games this season. So all the offense is going to have to do is just do enough. And a point I do want to bring up too. Idaho had a couple potential picks slip through their fingertips.
And they need those.
If Idaho could, well, the reason I say that is there's a world where if Idaho can convert on a couple of those almost picks.
I know that was a bugaboo last year, though.
This might be an anxiety-free game.
Yeah.
But just converting on a couple of those. So like, hey, I know, like I was like, hey, KB in the comment section, just drink the Kool-Aid, JFC. Well, hey, dude, we do the show to talk about the whole thing, dude. Yeah. But like, hey, to bring up that perspective for a second, if Idaho can capitalize on those turnovers, this game is even further out. And hey, I mean, look at the box score for like 2 seconds, okay?
Yeah.
Idaho they converted on 3rd down once. They did convert on 2 4th downs for touchdowns and only had 225 total yards on the game. But in spite of that, Idaho defensively still only gave up 270 yards, man. Defense was on the field for just under, 26 pass attempts and 43 rushes. That's 69 defenses on the field for 69 plays, and they give up fewer than 300 yards. Like, okay. Like that's, to me, that's pretty incredible that the defense is able to do what it has. I mean, in the comments section, I believe it was Jonathan Jacobs earlier talking about, hey, like Idaho played 10 D linemen. They played 11 against Oregon. If you can go that deep on the D line, like that's part of why you can have the intensity that Idaho had. That's part of how they're sustaining the effort. But the fact that they're that deep on the D line, that they can rotate in that many guys and start and produce the way they did on the road at FBS Wyoming, huge deal, man. So
and they didn't commit a turnover either.
Yeah, you're saying, sorry, say it again. You said Idaho had no turnovers.
Idaho had no turnovers either. That's huge too. And that's I think that's the biggest thing for me personally, right, is that they didn't commit the turnovers. And I just, with those ones that just fell through their hands, man, it just gave me flashbacks from last year. I'm like, you got to come away with those because they had so many of those last year too. I'm like, you have to catch those. You have to get away with those. But it is a step in the right direction. They are on the right track to getting some turnovers, but they need to come away with them.
Yeah. So yeah. Hey, my broad takeaways are going to be, hey, by the way, we've got 46 live listeners, guys. Thanks for joining the show. Thanks for contributing in the comment section. Got a couple people to get to. Taylor Cash saying 225 yards on no needs to improve. Oh, Taylor, like 100%. But hey, glass half full on that is, holy shit, Idaho defensively was able to pick up a win when the offense only accrued 225 yards in the game. Wow. But that's where this team is. Look, Idaho right now, to me, the identity of this team, ignore the fact that Jason Eck is the coach for a second and all the identity that probably brings to mind. Idaho's a Weber State team right now. But defensively, they're bringing it. You know, they brought it against Wyoming. If you look at Idaho's schedule, if Idaho plays defensively like they did today, there are not most games Idaho has left. You're going to pick them to win the game if they can have a defensive effort like this throughout the rest of the season. Against top level teams like Montana State, like, hey, things are a little bit different. It's going to be hard to beat any like top level FCS team if you're not breaking 300 yards. But also, like, look, the offense is clearly a work in progress because we don't even know who in God's name is going to be the quarterback heading into next week. Nick Weber in the comment section, the O-line looks very good today. I agree with you, but kept the QBs clean and opened up running lanes. Yep. James Jacobs, impressed by Wagner's composure and performance. Hopefully he's okay. KB saying, way bigger win than blowing out Nevada. Wyoming was not expecting that. Hey, I agree with all of that because, I mean, now we're going to see what Wyoming is going to be. Now, if Wyoming's football team is on par with that announcing crew, it's going to be a long season in Laramie. If you listened to the game or watched the game, you got to hear only 7,000 Josh Allen references. You had virtually no research on Idaho whatsoever by any of the announcers who were butchering Idaho names left and right, including offensive coordinator Luke Schleister. And Aiden Napkin. Yeah. Aiden Napkin. Yeah. But hey, KB is right. Nevada was a terrible team last season. Now, Wyoming might turn out to be terrible, but on paper, they're not understood as terrible. They did not have an excess of talent with Craig Bull leaving, and Idaho picks up a huge win. Taylor Cash, how about Tommy the Hammer McCormick bringing the lumber today? Taylor, absolutely agree. Man, especially early.
Dude on a T-shirt today.
Yeah. So my takeaways, hey, big picture takeaways before we call it a day. Trevin, I'll give you another chance. My first is still don't think people should get hung up on the offense yet because we have no idea what it is, with the asterisk that you understand. There's no way you'd call offense the strong suit of this Idaho team. That's not remotely close right now. There's just way too much up in the air to know what that's going to be and to even talk about what the offense will be. But right now, clearly not the strength, but this is an elite level defense, both up front, and the secondary is fine. Again, it took a busted coverage for Wyoming to have their only touchdown came on busted coverage. Otherwise, Idaho is pretty damn good. Trevin, your last takeaways for a call today.
The defense, very, very impressive outing. It's going to be tough with this QB carousel they kind of got going on, and that's going to be tough for them to kind of find some continuity there with whoever they have at quarterback. Because, I mean, even if Jack Lane comes back, from that collarbone injury, it's, that's not an injury you just come back from and you're okay right away. You gotta kind of ease into that. So I'm sure when he comes back, even the things are going to be a little bit more simplified. And, I was impressed by the offensive line and how they played, impressed by Jordan Dwyer. I think the core of what holds this offense together plays very well. The supporting cast around it just needs to kind of emerge a little bit more. I think as far as the receivers and the pass catchers go, I think Jake Cox is a good example of a supporting cast member that plays really well. the running game, needs to be more consistent. Hopefully these quarterbacks, when they do play, can continue to do enough to win games.
Yeah, I mean, Idaho plays are obvious. They're obviously going to make Idaho pass the ball a little bit to win the game. Like, you just know that's what's going to happen. And the other thing that I'm curious if it's going to change, because hey, we love the personality of Jason Eck. We know he goes for it on fourth. We know he has he's been a gambler the whole time he's here. We know that, and that's part of what we love about him. Both touchdowns came on fourth down conversions, guys. But I am hoping he rethinks a little bit of the arithmetic on some of the fourth downs, because if you're a defensive oriented team, if defense is what's winning you your games, I think that is going to point him in a different direction on the fake punt, where you're wanting, if the defense has to bring intensity the whole goddamn game. Maybe it's just a couple more times you decide, hey, let's just give them some margin for error. Let's just play the field position, and let's know hey, if the defense can get a 3 and out, that's no different than our quarterback. After the punt plus a 3 and out, that changes field position might be no different than a quarterback having thrown for an extra 15-yard completion for first down just with some elapsed time. I'm hoping there's a little bit of change in that arithmetic. It's not going to change completely, because this is who Jason Eck is, and we love him. And hey, Idaho needed those 2 fourth down conversions. If they don't get touchdowns on both those, they don't win the game. Yeah. And they did. So don't mean to call that into question overall, but I just have to expect that further on the season, as Idaho's clearly a defensive team, you're just the fake punts in the middle of the goddamn field are going to go away.
Yeah, no, and I think he's probably the most self-aware coach that I've ever talked to, and I think he's gonna notice that and be aware and go watch the film and use that as a takeaway. Also, want to say Randy Isbell from the Lewiston Tribune did send me a text and say that Jason Eck did not have an update on Jack Wagner that he gave out, and he did give Randy shit for opening the interview with a question on the QB's health for the second time in a row. But I mean, you got to do that. It was a joking giving shit, but
yeah. All right, guys. Man, it's still wild, man. Sorry, I know I've tried to close the show 14 times and I keep coming back, but that was such a fun game. It's just wild to think of Idaho. I know, look, I don't always want to reference the dark old days, but this is 3 years in a row where out of conference, Idaho brings it every single game. We're now 2 years in a row, Idaho with a Mountain West win, and in different convincing fashions. Hey, Nevada was a blowout. That's convincing. It's a different level of convincing to go on the road without your starting quarterback in 1 week of prep and hold the other team to one offensive touchdown. And look, Idaho didn't play a perfect game. We already talked about field position. The Vandals gave up twice and still held Wyoming to 13 points. It's hard to say enough about the defensive effort. And if Idaho if a couple things break Idaho's way differently in this game, where this could have been a 10 or 13 point win. So kick-ass game for Idaho. I will be happy when we get back to ESPN Plus broadcasts.
Me too.
So I got to say, we've had Big Ten and we've had Mountain West on different streaming services. Those bigger conferences do not have anything better than what the Big Sky has.
No, I wouldn't say so. And I mean, you're just going to have to pay or sign up for a free subscription to Fubo or YouTube TV and then remember to cancel it. Luckily, I have YouTube TV, so it's clutch. But I mean, that's annoying,
Space Lennon really wants me to read in the comments section. Please read on the air. Ba-pa-da, ba-pa-da, ba-pa-da. Okay, I don't know the rhythm, but you're welcome, Space Lennon. He's a patron. He's a patron. That's why we do this shit. So anyway, guys, hey, thanks for coming. I will be recording the Big Sky Podcast Number Power Rankings tomorrow at some point. And Simon Miller saying crack streams is your friend. Well, it's hey, part
or
of
streams out east.
Okay, well, look, I know there's the pirating streams. I'm just saying what the Big Sky Conference has for streamings is better than what the Mountain West has. It's better than what the Big Ten has. So Anyway, thanks for coming. We'll also be on the live show this Wednesday at 6:45. But until then, man, Idaho picks up. This is a huge win for playoff purposes. I mean, Idaho now, it's FCS the rest of the way. If Idaho can pick up, I mean, look, this is huge for playoffs. And with an injured quarterback, every goddamn win matters for what Idaho can do. I don't know how to state more about how important this win was and how incredible it is for Idaho with what happened to pick up the win. So, hey, thanks for coming. And with that said, we will see you soon. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals. Go Vandals.